Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel Dhyani Classes. If you are watching my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So in today's video we will cover the first part of the chapter, The 100 Dresses Part 2, written by E.L. Besor Esther from class 10 CBSE. So let's get started. So today we will look at the second part of the chapter, The 100 Dresses, and in the first part of the chapter we have seen that Wanda Petonsky was the one who owned the drawing contest in the class and how she had drawn beautifully different designs of dresses such as green and blue and pink because she had many dresses that she used to talk about to Peggy and her friend Maddie, and both girls were very surprised by looking at her beautiful drawings. So let's begin with the second part of the chapter now. While the class was circling the room, the monitor from the principal's office brought Miss Mason a note. So here the author is saying that while the class was circling the room, that means the children was still looking at the painting which Wanda had designed as they were looking at the painting. So the class monitor went to the principal's room or principal's office and brought her a note from her desk and says, Miss Mason read it several times and studied it thoughtfully for a while. So when the class monitor handed a note to Miss Mason started reading a note and she read the note several times, more than 2 times, and while reading she was looking thoughtful for a while. That means she was thinking for a while. So thoughtful means profound or serious, and then she clapped her hands. So after reading a note, she clapped her hands and said, "Attention class, everyone back to their seat." So she clapped her hand and said, "Attention class," and asked to go back to their seat to the children and sit because she wanted to read a note in front of the class. So she wanted everybody to listen the note. When the shuffling of feet had stopped and the room was still and quiet, Miss Mason said, "I have a letter from Wanda's father that I want to read to you." So here she is saying that when the shuffling of feet had stopped, that means when everybody sat on their seat and there was no more sound of dragging feet in the classroom and classroom was quiet, then Miss Mason said, "I have a letter from Wanda's father." That means I want to read that letter, and Miss Mason got a letter from Wanda's father and she wanted to read it to the whole class and says, Miss Mason stood there a moment and the silence in the room grew tense and expectant. So here the author is saying that Miss Mason stood there for a moment. That means she waited for a moment, or she waited for all the students to sit comfortably in their seats, or waiting for silence in the classroom. And when everybody sat in their seats, the room grew tense and expectant. That means everybody in the classroom was very tensed and eager to know what was written in their letter. So expectant means excited or waiting for something eagerly. Further, she says the teacher adjusted her glasses slowly and deliberately. So here Miss Mason fixed her glasses slowly and deliberately. That means knowingly, and became serious in order to read the letter and says, her manner indicated that what was coming, this letter from Wanda's father, was a matter of great importance. That means when she all sat, she was looking very serious and showed a strange gesture on a letter written a note by Wanda's father, and then she started to read the letter and says, everybody listened closely as Miss Mason read the brief note. So when she opened the letter and started reading, everybody in the classroom were very tensed and eager to know what was written there in the letter, and says, "Dear teacher, my Wanda will not come to your school anymore, Jack also." So here she is saying that Miss Mason started reading a written note and it says, "Dear teacher, my Wanda will not come to your school anymore." That means Wanda's father wrote, "My daughter Wanda and son Jack both will not come to the school because now we move away to a big city." So why they are not going to come to the school? Because they are going to move or shift some other big city. No more holler Polak, no more ask why funny name. So her father also wrote no more holar polak. That means nobody is going to make them sad and cry out loud or tease Wanda Petonsky in other city just because of her strange name, and nobody is going to make fun of their names, and says plenty of funny names in the big city. Yours truly, Jan Petonsky. So here her father also mentioned that in this big city where they are moving now, people have strange and funny names, and nobody is going to make fun of their funny names, and even they respect each other. And then in the end he wrote yours truly, Jan Petonsky. So Jan Petonsky is the father of Wanda Petonsky, who wrote his name by telling that my both children will not attend your school anymore, and now we are moving to a big city, and there are many people who have funny names, but nobody cares about the funny names and nobody bothered about it. So in this city nobody will make fun of my children as well. So this is written note showed immense force of sadness because his children were being teased and his children were not feeling happy to come to this school. A deep silence met the reading of this letter. So here the author is saying that after hearing this letter from Miss Mason, everybody in the class became very silent and they were feeling sad for Wanda Petonsky. So deep silence means very quiet or absence of sound or noise, and says Miss Mason took off her glasses, blew on them and wiped them on her soft white handkerchief. So after reading the letter, she removed her glasses and started wiping them on her soft white handkerchief. Miss Mason was also feeling very sad after reading this letter, and that's why she was looking thoughtful for a while. So handkerchief means a piece of cloth made by cotton for wiping face or glasses, and says then she put them on again and looked at the class. So after wiping her glasses, she put on them again, and that means she wore glasses again and started looking towards the children who were sitting very sad and silently, and says when she spoke her voice was very low. So when she was reading a note or written note by Wanda's father, her voice was very low because she was also feeling sad to hear that. I'm sure that none of the boys and girls in room number 13 would purposefully and deliberately hurt anyone's feeling because his or her name happened to be long, unfamiliar one. So here she was telling boys and girls who were sitting in room number 13, and says, I'm sure none of you made fun of anyone purposely and deliberately, that means knowingly or intentionally, in the class who have a strange name and funny name, or children who have a very long name or unfamiliar one, that means foreign name or a very strange name. So she appreciates those children as well who have a very strange and funny names, who are sitting in room number 13 and still doing their study without bothering what their name is. I prefer to think that what was said in thoughtlessness. So here she also makes children understand who made fun of Wanda Petonsky, that I knew that you did this thing with Wanda Petonsky unknowingly and made fun of her in thoughtlessness. That means they were not aware what they were doing when they were making fun of her and just doing this thing for fun only, and you didn't do it purposefully or for taking any revenge from her. And says, I know that all of you feel the way I do, that this is very unfortunate thing to have happened, unfortunate and sad both. So here Miss Mason saying after reading a note from her father that I am feeling very sad, and I'm sure all of you would be feeling very sad and sorry for Wanda Petonsky and her brother, because they are going to leave the city just because of they have strange and unfamiliar names, and said this is very unfortunate, that means this is very inappropriate and sad or bad luck for our school that it had happened in this school, and I want you all to think about it. So here she told every student in the class that just think about it and make sure this shouldn't happen once again in the school with anyone, just like what had happened to Wanda Petonsky and her brother Jack in this school. The first period was a study period. Maddie tried to prepare her lessons, but she could not put her mind on her work. So here she is saying that it was the first study period after Miss Mason and Maddie was preparing her lessons. That means she was getting ready to read or write something on notepad, but she could not put her mind on her work. That means Maddie was feeling sick and very sad and feeling very sorry for Wanda Pitonsky, and she was not able to concentrate on study. She had a very sick feeling in the bottom of her stomach. So here Maddie was a poor girl like Wanda Pitonsky, but on the other hand, she was also a best friend of Peggy who used to make fun of Wanda Pitonsky. So during the first period of study, she was not able to study because she was also feeling pain in the bottom of her stomach, and this was also one of the reason why she was not able to concentrate on study. True, she had not enjoyed listening to Peggy ask Wanda how many dresses she had in her closet, but she had said nothing. So the author is saying that yes, it is true, Maddie used to stand by Peggy's side when Peggy used to make fun of Wanda Pitonsky while asking questions to her about how many dresses you have in your closet. But then Maddie did not ask any questions to Wanda, and even she did not laugh at Wanda Pitonsky because Maddie was also a poor girl like a Wanda Pitonsky. Further, she says she had stood by silently, and that was just as bad as what Peggy had done. So, here she is saying that Maddie used to stand by Peggy's side very silently without saying anything to Peggy, and then Wanda understood that somehow Maddie also making fun of her just like her friends who were making fun of her. Worse, she was a coward. So now Maddie was thinking about herself, and this is worse. That means this is very bad, and calling herself a coward. That means a person who is not courageous to do something. So Maddie was also thinking that she is not courageous at all because she could not able to say anything or to stop Peggy when she was making fun of Wanda Pitonsky. At last, Peggy hadn't considered they were being mean, but she, Maddie, had thought they were doing wrong. So here she is saying that Peggy was thoughtless. That means she never cared about others' feeling for the sake of fun and laughing, and especially when she was making fun of Wanda Pitonsky. And she never pay attention to what she is doing and what Wanda is feeling. And when she was asking the same questions every day, every single day, and says Maddie had thought they were doing wrong. That means Maddie was aware of what they were doing, and whatever they were doing, it was absolutely wrong. She could put herself in Wanda's shoes. So Maddie was very thoughtful, and she also cares about Wanda's Pitonsky, but she was also a poor girl and used to wear donated clothes by Peggy, and that's why she could not able to say anything or stop Peggy, but she was also putting herself into Wanda's shoes. That means she was putting herself Wanda's place, and she knew that how Wanda would have felt when Peggy and her friend used to make fun of her. Goodness, wasn't there anything she could do? So here Maddie was feeling very sorry for Wanda Pitonsky and says, my goodness, if I had stopped Peggy, Wanda and her brother Jack wouldn't have left school, and said, if only she could tell Wanda she hadn't mean to hurt her feelings. So Maddie wanted to meet Wanda Pitonsky and tell her sorry for making fun of her, asking the same questions every day, and tell her she hadn't meant to hurt her feelings, and we were asking questions just for the fun only. She turned around and stole a glance at Peggy, but Peggy did not look up. She seemed to be studying hard. So here Maddie looked around and stole a glance at Peggy. That means she looked at Peggy, but Peggy did not look up. That means Peggy was doing something and did not look at Maddie, and she seemed to be studying hard. That means Peggy was reading and writing something, and it seemed she was not bothered or disturbed what Miss Mason had said, and was studying very hard with full concentration. Further, she says, well, whether Peggy felt badly or not, Maddie had to do something. She had to find Wanda Pitonsky. So now Maddie decided to find out Wanda Pitonsky anyhow, whether Peggy feels bad or not. That means whether Peggy would feel good or bad. She doesn't care about her, and said she had to do something by hook and crook. That means she wanted to find out Wanda's house in Bogan Heights so that she could meet her and tell her sorry. Maybe Peggy would climb the heights with her and they would tell Wanda she had won the contest. So here she is saying that Maddie also thought about Peggy, that maybe Peggy would climb the height with her. That means maybe Peggy would go along with her Bogan Heights where Wanda lives and tell her sorry for what they have done, and also would tell her that she had won the contest. Further, she says that they thought she was smart and the 100 dresses were beautiful. So here she was also thinking that it would be great idea to tell her that she is very smart and intelligent, and 100 dresses were drawn or painted by her really beautiful and outstanding. When school was dismissed in the afternoon, Peggy said with pretended casualness, "Hey, let's go and see if that kid has left town or not." So when school was dismissed in the afternoon, that means after the school in the afternoon, Peggy herself said Maddie very casually. That means she said in a relaxed and informal way that she wanted to meet Wanda Pitonsky, or wanted to see her, whether Wanda has left Bogan Heights or not. So pretended means fake or not genuine, and casualness means lack of interest or not really concerned. So Peggy had the same idea. Maddie glowed. Peg was really alright. So here Maddie wanted to meet Wanda Pitonsky separately, but after the school, Peggy told her that she also wanted to meet Wanda Pitonsky, and she had the same idea. And so after hearing this, Maddie glowed. That means Maddie became very happy, and they were ready to go to the Bogin side to meet Wanda Pitonsky. The two girls hurried out of the building, up the street towards Nogins Heights, the part of town that wore such a forbidding air on this kind of a November afternoon, drizzly, damp and dismal. So here two girls hurried out of the building. That means the next day they came out of their house very quickly and quietly, and then started walking towards the Nogins Heights, and it was a really dirty place and bad smelling the way they were going. And she is also saying that it was an afternoon of the month of November, and the weather was kind of drizzly, damp and dismal. That means there was moisture in the air and the weather was gloomy. "Well, at least," said Peggy gruffly, "I never did call her a foreigner or make fun of her name." So here she is saying that finally Peggy said gruffly, that means with a deep and rough voice, that I never did call her foreigner or make fun of her name. That means she never teased her what her name was, and even I never made fun of her name, because Peggy used to ask her questions related to her dresses, and she never asked her name. So in this way she is saying that I never call her a foreigner or make fun of her name, and telling that she never had made fun of her name, and says I never thought she had the sense of no, we were making fun of her anyway. That means she also never thought that Wanda is really sensible girl and knows everything, because Wanda used to stay alone and keep quiet all the time, and used to walk very strangely while going or coming to the school, and says I thought she was too dumb, and gee, look how she can draw. So Peggy also thought that Wanda is a dumb child. That means she was not able to speak or listen. But then after seeing her performance in the drawing contest, she became very surprised to see her drawings and beautiful designs, or the color Wanda applied on her paintings. Maddie could say nothing. So Maddie was also listening very carefully and didn't say anything in reply, because she knew how Peggy used to make fun of Wanda Pitonsky. Further, she says all she hoped was that they would find Wanda. So here Maddie had a one hope, to find out Wanda's house and tell her sorry whatever she has done from her end, and says she wanted to tell her that they were sorry they had picked on her, and how wonderful the whole school thought she was, and please not to move away and everybody would be nice. So Maddie was eager to see Wanda and wanted to tell her sorry that they had picked on her. That means she is thinking that she will tell her sorry on behalf of all the girls who made fun of her, and how wonderful the whole school thought she was. That means she will also assure her that nobody is going to tease her going forward, and would request please not to move away and everybody would be nice. That means she will also tell her that please don't move or leave this city, and all the classmates will also behave in a good manner with her, and everything would be fine. She and Peggy would fight anybody who was not nice. So here she was also thinking that she will also assure her that both Peggy and Maddie would help her when anybody making fun of her, and they wouldn't also tease her, and wanted to tell her that both Maddie and Peggy would support her and would stop anybody making fun of Wanda. The two girls hurried on. They hoped to get to the top of the hills before dark. That means both Maddie and Peggy started bit faster than usual, and then they hoped that they would get there before evening. I think that's where the Pitonskis live, said Maddie, pointing to a little white house. So finally, both girls reached Bogin's height, and then Maddie saw a little white house, and then she pointed out to a little white house and said, I think that's the Wanda's house where she lives. Further, she says wisps of old grass stuck up here and there along the pathway like thin kittens. So while walking towards Wanda's house, they saw wisps of old grass stuck up here and there. That means there were a small and thin or twisted bunch of grass by the sideway or on the way of her house. So think thick kittens means small or young cats, and says the house and its sparse little yard looked shabby but clean. So here finally both Peggy and Maddie found Wanda's house, and says it sparse little yard. That means it had a small and scattered yard in front of her house, and yard looked shabby but clean. That means front space of her house was in a very poor condition or run down, and it was not looking clean, but still the whole place was looking clean. So sparse means thin or small, or shabby means miserable or dirty, and says it reminded Maddie of Wanda's one dress, her faded blue cotton dress, shabby but clean. So here both girls came closer to the main gate of the house, and they thought of Wanda, and says it reminded Maddie of Wanda's one dress. That means they saw one of Wanda's dress was hanging on a rope, and they saw it was her faded blue cotton dress, shabby but clean. That means it was not ironed and looking very old one, but it was looking very clean. There was not a sign of life about the house. So here the author is saying that both girls understood that no one is living here in this house, and there was not a sign of life. That means they did not see anyone around the house, and Peggy knocked firmly on the door, but there was no answer. So later on they went inside the gate, and Peggy knocked on the door, but there was no answer. That means no one came out of the house. So firmly means strongly or thoroughly, and says she and Maddie went around to the backyard, and knocked there. Still there was no answer. So here Maddie and Peggy decided to go around to the backyard. That means back of the house, and knocked there. That means they also knocked the back door of the house, but still there was no answer. That means no one came out of the house, and they looked everywhere, but nobody was there inside the house or around the house. So knocked the door means banged the door. There was no doubt about it. So something came into their mind, and they were certain about it, and said there was no doubt about it. And why they thought like this, let's see in the next slide. The Pitonskis were gone, so now they got to know or understood that Wanda had left the house, and even knocked firmly twice on the door, but they were not getting any answer, and that's why she's saying that there was no doubt about it, and says how could they never make amends. They turned slowly and made their way back down the hill. So here the author is saying that how could they never made amends. That means they were thinking how could they change Wanda's feeling by telling her sorry, and how they tell her that she won the drawing contest, and Maddie was feeling very sad and disappointed because she could not meet her to tell her sorry. And then they turned slowly and made their way back down the hill. That means they decided to go back to their house, and slowly they started walking towards the hill and coming back to their house. Well, anyway, said Peggy, she's gone now, so what can we do? Besides, when I was asking her about her dresses, she probably was getting good idea for her drawings. So here Peggy is saying that well, anyway, that means just leave it and don't be sad because she is gone now. So what we can do, that means there is no point in being sad because she has already left, and there is nothing much we could do. And says when I was asking about her old dresses, She probably was getting good ideas for her drawings. That means, in order to change Maddie's mood, Peggy asked her about Wanda's dresses, and she thought Maddie would change her mind and would feel happy. And then Maddie became very happy, and both Maddie and Peggy started talking to each other about the dresses, and they were giving their opinion or ideas for making more beautiful drawings. So this is the end of the first part of the chapter, the 100 dresses part 2. Let's look at the second part of the chapter in my next video. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So thank you so much for watching once again. Stay safe, stay healthy.